in fact, it's not Uncle Bob.
Oh, geez, you learn something new every day, don't you?
Makes so much sense.
It does, yeah.
Oh, no, that's brilliant. Thank you, obviously, for explaining like with that as well.
What advice would you give to someone who thinks they're in the presence of a demon in their home? So that would be the obvious, wouldn't it, really?
Yeah. What would be your advice?
So if someone thinks that they're in the presence of a demon in their home, here are the things to look for. So what makes an infestation, a demonic haunting, different than a earthbound spirit haunting is a demonic haunting tends to get really destructive really fast. Again, they don't want to, haunt the home. They want to eventually gain possession of someone. So during the stage of infestation, the entity is now in the home and it is going to latch on to the person that has the weakest will, if you will. They don't like to fight. They're pretty cowardly, and they're going to take the easiest target that they can. So what happens is now the entity has found its target. So now it goes to the stage of oppression, which now means the entity has now connected itself with that person. When the person leaves the home is quiet. When the person is in the home is active. Now, what the goals that a demon try to gain during the stage of oppression is it wants to break that person down spiritually, mentally, physically, completely isolate that person. Now, during the stage of oppression, that demon will use what that person loves the most against them. It will do whatever it has at its disposal to completely break that person's will. Now, in the Stinson case, which is the case that got me started in demonology and spiritual warfare, it used her children against her. What better way to break a mother down than to attack it, her children? Until it, now remember, you still have to give the demon permission to possess you. But I'm going to tell you how this happens. The mother says, do whatever the hell you want to do to me, but leave my children alone. Guess what? Bingo. You just granted that entity permission to possess you.
Yeah.
So my advice to people that think that they are in the presence of a demon in their home is, trust me, they will not second guess. They will know for a fact that there is a demon in their home. Some of the common signs is a smell of sulfur, rotting eggs. You will see things happen in 3 knocks on the wall at 3 a.m. You may see shadow people. Shadow people is connected to demonic hauntings. You will have objects that will disappear. Go ahead.
Infestation? Is an infestation a sign of demonic? Like flies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, an infestation is the presence of a demonic entity in the home. That is the very first stage of a demonic haunting. The very first stage is called infestation, which you will have all the signs of a haunting, but a demonic haunting tends to get really destructive really fast. In other words, the pace gets rampant. It picks up speed fairly quick. The second stage is oppression. Now it's connected itself to an individual in the home, and the final stage is called possession.
Would plants die? And what I meant by infestation, is like flies and insects invading the house.
Absolutely. Cockroaches, flies, rats. Yeah, you name it. That is a common sign when you talk about infestation in a home.
So, Jereme, I've got a question. We had a demonologist on not so long ago, and I get that you guys all work different, but something he said really did not I didn't quite understand what he was telling me. So his method was that he actually eats demons. Therefore, he asked the demon to enter himself. And what I've seen in movies and things like that, I assume that you don't ask anything to be entered into yourself. And then he says he therefore eats them. Is that something that you're familiar with?
That is absolutely one of the craziest things that I have ever heard in my life. Anybody that knows the capability of a demon and what it could do would never, ever, under any circumstances, ask a demon to enter into him. Look, ladies, I'm going to tell you like this. The word demonologist, okay, it's almost like a badge. There are many and a lot of people out there that claim to be demonologists, but that does not mean that they are. And what irritates me so much now, when other demonologists or paranormal investigators, for that matter, give very dangerous advice to other people, that is very dangerous. If you do not know something, do not pretend to know, because you can get somebody hurt really, really bad.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's kind of like
we're all learning, aren't we?
Yeah, because every day is a learning curve for us. We've not been doing it for years.
2015, I think.
I was saying I'm about 4 years, but obviously before that I would do investigations as a guest. So we kind of do it as we're learning. Every day's a learning curve.
You meet all these different people, don't you?
Yeah.
They tell you one thing, they tell you another, and it's just, what do you believe, and what's real, what's true, and what's going to keep us safe at the end of the day.
Yeah.
There is another question. Yes. Do you want to ask this one, Rosie? This might touch a certain area for you.
So,
Jereme?
have you or witnessed anyone that's had an incubus or a succubus?
Okay, so I'm gonna tell you something about incubus. I'm glad y'all answer that question. All right, so incubus and succubus. All right, so Hollywood tells us that these are sexual predators, demons, basically. Okay, they are. Okay, but here is what most people don't know. All right, so an incubus or a succubus is what I call an extension of someone's subconscious mind. It is, in fact, a self-created deity or entity. All right, now it starts off as fantasizing of something sexual or a sexual person. Okay, so you think about this. Energy never dies. It just transforms itself from one state to another. There's two types of energy in the world. There's positive energy and there's negative energy. All right, negative energy will feed or attract negative energy. Positive energy will feed or attract positive energy. Okay, now when somebody fantasizes about something, all right, what part of your existence would you say is purely spiritual? Your thoughts. Your thoughts is the purely spiritual side of your existence. Okay, now most people don't realize this, but you will now after I tell you. When we think our thoughts, we visualize everything that we are thinking subconsciously or consciously, whether we know it or not. So now you're taking something from a purely spiritual state, and now we are manifesting it into the physical world that we live in, the way that we perceive the world. You see, we perceive the world by our thoughts, right? Which means that I could look at a flower and think it's beautiful, and y'all could look at a flower and say, that ain't a flower, that's nothing but weed. It's all on your perception on how you perceive something through your thoughts. Okay, so when we have a fantasy, a dark fantasy or a sexual fantasy about someone or something, we visualize this fantasy playing out, right? So now that energy is being pulled in and it's feeding and it's expanding. The human body can only sustain so much before that energy now leaves the body and enters into a home or an atmosphere that the person is living in. Now the energy still continues to feed as they fantasize about this until it gets to the point to where that energy becomes self-aware. It becomes an actually intelligent entity, but it's not a purely spiritual entity such as a demon. All right, you are giving this thing life subconsciously by your thought. Exactly. It's feeding and reacting off of your thoughts, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Now, doing spiritual rituals on these type of entities do not work because it's not a spiritual being. It's a self-creation. Now, how do you get these types of hauntings to stop? First, the client needs to realize what's happening. Okay. Then they need to cut the chromatic ties that the energy has to that person and release it instead of harboring that energy. You have to set it free.
So something like we saw a year or so ago that a lady was having a relationship and she was getting married.
Oh yeah, on this morning.
Yeah, she was getting married to her spirit.
A spirit that was having sex with her, wasn't it?
Yeah. So could that be maybe?
And that's absolutely absolutely. That is a self-created spirit. And like I said, you give this thing life and it seems to be a real entity. All right. It has an intelligence of its own. You give it life. I think of it as, this is the way that I describe it to people. Think of a demon that you created that has an umbilical cord attached to you. You give it life through the umbilical cord. Now with those type of things too, again, energy, negative energy, okay, as it manifests, as it grows, all right, it's when it becomes self-aware, it is going to be of a negative nature and it is going to want to continue to feed on negative energy. So how does it do that? It gets destructive with the person, right? It starts causing, yeah, it starts, causing conflict. They're terrified. They're feeding off of it. Think of that as an all-day Chinese buffet for a
Yeah.
spirit, right?
Yeah,
They
especially
just
for a teenage
constantly
boy.
feed, and the more
Yeah.
they feed, the more powerful, in fact, they get.
Yeah.
It's kind of, it's really opened our eyes up
slotting
with that.
into space, though.
It is. It's like, it's kind of like your puzzle pieces are fixing together. So thank you for explaining that.
Absolutely.
That's very interesting, and obviously I want to learn a little bit more about that. So
yeah, definitely.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
There's different beings as well, isn't there? I think like the American Indians, they have these earth spirits that just watch you and just.
You have elementals. Yes, you have elementals. I've dealt with elementals on many occasions.
They're a real
and
thing,
so when it comes to an elemental is not, it's not really a demon, but it's not an earthbound spirit neither. They're the best way to describe them, they are guardians of nature. Okay, so again, let's go to mythology and folklore. You have leprechauns, you have fairies, you have trolls, you have all of these different creatures, right? So again, they all have an origin of truth, right? Which is what elementals are. They're not bad, but they're not good. They're more mischievous than anything. They like to cause chaos. For whatever reason, it seems they get a kick out of it. Now, how does someone run across an elemental? Again, elementals are guardians of Mother Nature, right? So we move in on their territory, their land. They tend to get really PO'd about that kind of stuff, right? So then they'll start doing mischievous things. And for somebody that don't know anybody, they could seem to be demons or are really, really negative or evil, if you will. But I have learned how the best way to appease elementals is you give them something back, right? You intrude on their land. So what I always tell a client to do is get an orange tree, an apple tree, plant it on the back side of the property, let them know that belongs to them. That is theirs. And after you plant it, you never touch it again. So it's, you got to think of things as symbolic whenever you're talking about the spiritual world. So symbolically, you are giving something back to them. And 9 times, well, let's just say 8 times out of 10, that will appease them. And, they'll stop doing the mischievous things that they were doing prior.
Oh, there's another question I'd like to ask you, Jeremy, if I may. Do you believe in family curses? Like something like
absolutely. Absolutely. It's called chromatic ties. Absolutely. Yeah. So what is a curse? A curse is the opposite of a blessing. Okay. So when you say a blessing on somebody, you are using words that when you say them transforms itself into a supernatural vehicle that holds divine power. Okay. Same thing happens when you put a curse on somebody. You are taking words and you are turning it into a vehicle that holds divine power. All right. So the blessing, the positive. The curse is the negative. The opposite of a blessing is a curse. And when we talk about bloodline curses, this could be a curse that was put on your family lineage, 3 or 4 generations back. Yeah. And, you're suffering the consequences for something that you had no part in, but it's called chromatic ties. The entity does not possess the family. All right. In other words, the demon will check up on the family from time to time and make sure they're not getting ahead, right? And if they are, he's going to have to notch them down a couple of notches, all right? So that is a curse that took place by one of your ancestors generations ago, and the demon still has the legal right. See, that's the thing. The demon still has the legal right to affect the bloodline or the family lineage because it's never been broken, okay? Now, demons have the tendency to make people believe that, breaking chromatic ties, breaking curses, all of these things are almost impossible, right? But that's a tactic that they use. In all honesty, it's very simple. So if you say a curse on somebody and you give it supernatural power, why don't I say a blessing to break the curse and give it that supernatural power as well? Here's the thing, though. Once we break the curse, all right, we have to do it spiritually, which is in our thoughts. We have to say it out loud because the entity is affecting the physical world that we live in. That's why we say rituals out loud, okay? The spiritual battle actually takes place here. but it's affecting the physical world. So we have to break that as well. So what we do is I now break any curse that was put onto me and my family lineage by anyone. I consider all acts of witchcraft, sorcery, Satanism now null and void.
Yeah.
You no longer have any power over me. Okay.
Yeah.
It is that simple, but you have to live your life from that moment on, knowing that you broke it without doubting yourself. See, that is the key. And that sometimes is the hard thing to do. We have to truly believe in what we are doing. That, my friends, is the very foundation and the key to spiritual warfare itself. We must truly believe in what we are doing in order for it to work. And I'll give you a perfect example. A crucifix is nothing more than an object. It's your faith in that crucifix that gives it its divine power. Okay. So the same thing applies when we talk about our thoughts and what we project onto someone. Think of it as the law of attraction. Whatever signal you put out is what you're going to get back in.
Right. Yeah.
See, I interviewed Jayla Antor, and she lived in the Skegness. It's a haunted house for poltergeist activity in the UK. It's the Skegness Horror House, I think it was called, wasn't it? And Nick Roth and Katrina Wiseman went and visited when they did the paranormal lockdown, and she said that this entity that she calls the Dark Man has come from all the way from Greece. It haunted her father, and now it's haunted her, and it attached itself to the brothers. And she says she's never been able to shift it. I mean, she's very bubbly and
she's so positive in herself. So I think it
can't get hold of her.
Can't get hold of her
itself.
Yeah,
and it tormented her and her brother as a child. And if she knew how to be able to control something like that, that would be a big benefit to her. So hearing you say that,
so let's approach it from a different angle. Okay, so what if I told you that you can have anything in life that your heart so desires? All right, Rosie, you want $1 million, right? But you're saying $1 million. I asked for $1 million. I didn't get it. Sarah, all right, say you want a Lamborghini. You're going to say, I wish for a Lamborghini, but instead I'm driving around in a hoopty, right? Now, have you ever wondered why? Because you say that I want. Again, our thoughts are very powerful. The word want is a negative thought. So naturally, when you say, I want something, I want $1 million, you're putting that signal out, right? So then it's because it's a negative signal. You're getting more of what you do not want. I mean, let's face it. We spend most of our time in life thinking about the things that we don't want, right? So in fact, by thinking that, we are now getting more of what we don't in life. Train yourself to think, instead of saying I want, say I will have that $1 million.
Yeah.
Sarah, I will have that Lamborghini. In fact, I can feel myself driving in it right now. I can feel my hands on the steering wheel. So you live your life as if you've already got it. Imagine it in your mind as if you've already got it, and live your life. So what happens with that now, you're taking something pure spirit. Now you're visualizing, you are manifesting it into the physical world in which we live in. Now we don't have to worry about how we're going to get it, because the world, is going to put everything that we need in our path in order to get what we want. Why do you think, look, and this is something that, real successful people will tell you over and over again. They all preach the same thing. They preach the law of attraction. You will get out of life what you put in. It's all on the way you think. Look, you have no limits. All right. You are a very powerful person. You create your own world by your thoughts. And if you can't have what you want in life, then what's the point in living? You have to approach it from that point of view. And I will tell you this, once I understood that, I can honestly say that I've accomplished everything in my life that I've ever put my mind to. Awesome. Simply by saying, you know what, it's going to happen. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It is going to happen. And I live as if it's already happened.
Jereme, Ghosts of Morgan City. That's where I want to get to. Yes.
Ghosts of Morgan City. Absolutely. Look, I knew, I told God a long time ago, with the spiritual warfare thing, take me where you want me to go with this. And I let it be. And I will say this, I always knew that, it was a matter of time before I ended up on a television show. In fact, I'm leaving next month to film a paranormal series for a streaming network called Netflix. I can't tell you what the name of it is or anything like that. But, again, I said, okay, Ghost of Morgan City, that's just the first stop. You know, you know that you're going to keep getting the opportunities that you need. And one, you know, I have a message for people and a very unique way of explaining things, you know, from a teacher standpoint. You know, I have students that yet they need to hear something. There's that person somewhere out there that's probably listening to this podcast right now or whenever you air it that is lost. They need some guidance.
Yeah.
And something that I say may strike a chord with them. And they may say, oh my God, you know what? That makes complete sense what Jeremy's saying. So now it will give them the opportunity to stop living for yesterday and start living for today and tomorrow. Because if you live in the past, you can't move forward until you let that go.
Yeah. Stop dwelling. Just jump.
Yeah.
I'm a person that just jumps and takes life by the horns and just goes for it. Because, as you said, you don't know what's happening around the corner. Past is the past, and that stays in the past.
You know, and I'm gonna tell you another thing. So you talk about good and bad, positive and negative. Look, I will say this, you know, you can't have one without the other. You can't have day without night. You can't have positive without negative. Now, here's the key. They cannot coexist. They cannot occupy the same space at the same time, which is what you put here in your heart. Okay. You know, so understanding that, you know, we have the ability to choose because God gave us free will on whether we want to harbor positive or negative. You know, we choose our own path. We as human beings like to blame all our problems in life on everybody else, when in fact, you created the situation that you're in now, the negative situation, by your own free will. But here's the key. Something good always comes out of a bad situation. And if that bad situation does not happen to you, then that good thing cannot transpire directly from the bad thing that you are dealing with right now.
No, there's never, so like you say, like with that, I always kind of say there's light at the end of the tunnel. And there's
always light at the end of the tunnel. It's just,
be,
you know, it's up to you on how fast you want to get to the top.
Exactly. Go down, the only way they can go is back up again. Jereme, I'm sorry, I've got to ask, when you were doing Ghosts of Morgan City, the scene, the first, I think it was the third episode, when you were in the City Hall and you had all those people in there, and I think it was Ben that asked them, have any of you guys had paranormal? I mean, I have never seen so many hands go up. This is a real place, isn't it? This is all this paranormal activity is actually happening in this city, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. I will say this, you know, I hear rumors of different TV shows, producers ask you to fake stuff and so on. I will tell you guys this right now. Everything that you see on Ghost of Morgan City is true. Even the full body apparition that was captured at the Idlewild. Okay. That is 100% legit. All right. So now, Morgan City, you got to think about this. Water. Okay. Water is what? Moving water creates friction, which is an energy source. Okay. Morgan City is surrounded by water, which is fuel for spirits. All right. And not only that, Morgan City has a deep, deep history. All right. Going way back to the Native Americans, to the old Spanish Trail, to the yellow fever pandemic, you know, all of these things lead. You know, all of these events that happen leave what we call imprints on land or location, right? Which is like a record player that plays itself over and over and over again. It's not an intelligent haunting, but it is an imprint. Okay. With that being said, that imprint is like a lighthouse in a sea of darkness. All right. It's a beacon of light, and spirits naturally are drawn to that light. And they will harbor in that area because, you know, the history and so on, the imprints pretty much, it's almost a food source. So spirits have to be able to pull energy from something in order to manifest into the physical world and communicate with us, right? So water, hey, that's a buffet, right? All these imprints on the land and the locations itself. I mean, hey, it's like walking into the food pantry and saying, I want those, and those.
that last episode when you had you look like something off of Ghostbusters. You had the energy helmet on.
Ghost helmet.
The ghost helmet.
Get one of those on eBay.
So I'm going to tell you what, that was one of the most. So when it comes to the ghost helmet, I'm glad that I done it, but I
Yeah.
won't do it again. And I'm going to tell you why. It was very powerful. So I don't know if you girls ever heard of what is it, MAK Ultra, which is a government program in the early '60s where it's basically mind control. All right.
Right.
So the ghost helmet concept, the mechanics of it is based off of the MAK Ultra program. So what is inside the helmet is there's two magnets on each side, and they're pushing against one another. So psychic mediums have the ability to function on the left side of their brain. Most people function on the right side of the brain. I think I'm saying it right. It may be opposite. I don't know. But anyway, when you wear this helmet, you have the magnets pushing on you. You're wearing earbuds, and it has a clicking noise in it. All right. And then you have a flashing lights that happen in your eyes. So what that does is it takes away your physical senses, of the body that we live in, and it opens up or heightens those spiritual senses that psychic mediums are able to tap into. Now, in the episode, it looks like I started experiencing things almost immediately after putting on the helmet. Again, that's TV. It took about 30 minutes. Nothing happened. In the very beginning, the best way to describe it is I can see these spirits in front of me with my own physical eyes. It wasn't like a mind's eye. You could see them. However, it was kind of like, so you remember back in old days when you would draw a cartoon and sheets of paper and then you would move them slightly and they would move like this. That's what it looked like. That's what it looked like in the very beginning. But I could see a man standing in front of me. He was about 20 yards in front of me. He's standing over holes in the ground. There was like 3 of them. So I figured they were graves.
Right.
And this man's wearing black. And I could see to my left, there was a horse buggy with a carriage, and they had these black bags in the back. I would imagine it was body bags. And it was very distorted, but I can see it. It was almost like I was going in and out of that spiritual world. And I was seeing, glimpses of it. Then it got to where it was becoming more complete. I could see them, but it was like watching an old television. All right.
Wow.
There's a little bit of static involved, but you can see everything that's going on. Then it got to the point to where it's like they noticed that I can see them, and they all started walking toward me. And that's when I told them to take it off. Okay. Because they was getting a little bit too close. And Sarah was kind of worried that I wasn't going to ground myself properly after that. But I let her. I done everything she told me to do. And, I had some nightmares that night afterwards, but,
we're
finally
very
I was
emotional.
it was. See, and I think that's the thing that got me the most. So not only could I see what was going on, but it's like I felt, that man that was standing in front of me, I felt everything that he felt. In the very beginning, we thought that he might have been evil. But he wasn't.
No.
He was a father that, was remorsing over his children that he did not get to be in the presence of at the moment of their death, because he had a calling as a minister to read the last Miranda rights to the people that were dying. But you know what? He never blamed God for it. He never lost his faith. He just had to mourn. And I think that was all the emotions, that he was letting out, was he was mourning, and I was experiencing that.
You were the best person for the job, really. Definitely. Yeah.
Well, we figured that I was the best candidate because, Sarah being a psychic medium, we thought maybe it would be too much if she put it on. Ben, that's not Ben's forte. Ben's really a skeptic by nature.
Isn't he?
Yeah, he's a skeptic by nature, and me, I'm a spiritualist basically. So, I said, hey, I'll do it, and I'm glad I did. But, that the ghost helmet is a great paranormal tool to verify the other world, but it can be very dangerous as well, because you can forget very easily that you're wearing that. And think that you're somewhere that you're physically not. That's why I would advise anybody that ever does it, make sure they have some people with them. And another thing that happened that you didn't see on the show is they had a medical team there that was constantly monitoring my pulse, my blood pressure, and everything as well. You didn't see that on television.
No.
They were watching me medically very, very close.
Just to make sure.
I don't know if you can even buy these things anyway, can you? I don't know.
Never
There's a bit, might be a bit
No, KD is the only one that I know that makes it. He's only made one that I know of.
He needs to come to the UK so we can get someone of our team to some of our team
fry a few brains over here.
I'm just going to ask this question.
The mad scientist.
I just got a question. I think this is my mum's question.
Okay.
So, what do your work colleagues feel about you? Obviously, a demonologist, everything that you obviously witness and your family. How do they all feel about it? How you go through with it?
Well, in my professional career as a firefighter, I'm just Jereme to them. they know what I do, and all of that. But to them, I'm just Jereme. Really and truly, I very rarely talk about the paranormal side of my life. Right. If you see my personal page, I don't post a whole lot of stuff paranormal related there. Now, if you go to my public page, yeah, I do, because that's basically what it's there for. Yeah. But I don't. So what I do is I have the way that I approach things is kind of like this. You don't bring your work home with you, right?
No.
So I go to a case. I do what I'm called to do. When I leave, it's out of mind, out of sight, and that is a way to protect me as well, because anytime you become obsessed with something, like there's a lot of people that's really obsessed about the paranormal. Well, in fact, that's very dangerous, because obsession is an open doorway, so I don't bring my work home with me. I really strive on, keeping those two lives, the Cajun demonologist and Jereme Leonard, separate.
What do you do for fun? Spot fishing? Disco dancing?
What do I do for fun? Well, I'm a Cajun boy, so naturally I love to eat for fun. I like hunting, I like fishing, I like mud riding, I like shooting guns, I like going to the casino, I like swimming in the river. Well, you name it, I love to do it.
Oh, I love that.
I'm watching some True Blood. I don't know what to think. My accent's a little bit too southern for you, isn't it? But it's hitting big.
Investigate the Amityville Horror House.
Oh,
so greatest movies from my childhood. Two Lives, the Cajun.
No, we're not Australian.
Hey, come on.
I love that part.
That's that New Yorker. That's that New Yorker.
Or he's just checking.
Yeah,
he's just checking. Just checking.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Oh,
we've had a lot of your time now, so we're gonna give away one more question. What was the last question?
Oh, what was the last question? I think one of our last questions can be, if you can go anywhere in the world right now, where would you go and who would you take with you?
To haunted.
To a haunted location to investigate, anywhere that you can go to, and who would it be with?
You know what? I would love to be able to investigate the Amityville Horror House.
Oh,
so researching that, there's the Hollywood version, then there's the real events that happen in the house, and understanding how demons work, what they do and what they can't do. I would love to go there and do my own investigations and see exactly what it is that is there.
Yeah.
And if I could take anybody with me, who would I want to take with? You know what? I think I would take Grant with me. Grant Wilson.
Oh.
All right. So look, Grant Wilson is a wonderful man. He is one of the nicest human beings that you will ever.
Nice.
You know what? I might want to take Josh Gates with me.
Yeah.
Could you imagine my personality with Josh Gates?
Yeah.
That would be a disaster.
Do you know what? That New England
because I have a very bubbly personality, and so does he. So yeah, that would be quite interesting.
Barrel laughs on that.
That New England.
And I would take Sarah. I would take Sarah and Rosie. I would take you guys.
Oh, that's kind.
Would
you not fancy that New England strip? Because there's so much going on there, isn't there? This like Salem.
Absolutely. You got Connecticut. You got the Conjuring House. You got the Lizzie Borden House.
Yeah. Have you not done it?
Well, then again, you got to think about it. When it comes to America, the East Coast out there, that's some of the oldest, part of the New World, if you will. That's where all the
Yeah.
pilgrims came, was the East Coast. So,
Yeah.
it's full rich with history.
And New Orleans, because they got all that black
New
magic going
Orleans,
down
absolutely.
there.
So I live about 60 miles north of New Orleans. And I will tell you, New Orleans is by far one of the most haunted cities on the planet.
List.
You have people there from all different cultures. You have voodoo is rampant over there. And a lot of people, when they hear the word voodoo, naturally they think evil or bad, when in fact that is not entirely true. Voodoo actually has a lot of Christianity in it as well. So you got to think voodoo itself is the worship of your ancestors. So when the slaves were brought over here and they had to attend church on Sundays, from Christian services. So they didn't want the slave owners knowing what they were doing. So they incorporated a lot of Christianity into voodoo itself. So, the New Orleans voodoo that we know is not really evil. Look, whenever it comes to voodoo, really, it's all about the intention of the practitioner on whether it's evil or not.
Yeah.
And that pretty much goes with the occult in general.
Yeah. So it's kind of like, if they intend it to be evil, it will be evil. If they don't intend it to be,
if they want a good crop, if you
Absolutely.
want your nana to get better, stuff like that.
Yeah.
just like spiritual.
I mean, look, I have probably 10 authentic, genuine voodoo dolls in my house.
Don't get her on dolls.
They're all. I mean, are they evil? No. I mean, of course, whenever you see them on TV, you think of Chucky or something. But in fact, I mean, it's down here. See, and that's another thing. Being a demonologist here in the South is really unique because I live in a very unique part of the country, and there's a lot of spirituality that I would learn, being a Cajun living in the South, that most people, in any other part of the country or the world, for that matter, really wouldn't know.
No.
Have you ever?
So I'm really blessed to live here in the South, even though it's hot as hell out here.
Yeah.